Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 210 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And before we get to this week's guest, Troy McLawhorn and Terry LeRoi from KILLINGTON PIT, I want to remind you that Father's Day is coming up this weekend. And through the weekend, you can get 20% off men's t-shirts and tank tops. And my dad says Mistress Carrie rocks baby onesies in the online store at mistresscarrie.com when you use the code DAD2024. Just head to mistresscarrie.com and click shop. I also wanted to let you know that I have taken over the midday at 98 Rock in Charleston, South Carolina. You can hear me every weekday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Go to my98rock.com for the details. Troy McLawhorn and Terry LeRoi, along with Chuck Garric and Will Hunt, make up KILLINGTON PIT. Troy and Will, of course, are in Evanescence, and during the pandemic, connected with Chuck and Terry through their love of metal. They've already released the covers Riding on the Wind, Kill the King, and Balls to the Wall, and the band says they have got new original material in the works as well. I caught up with Troy and Terry a few weeks back to talk about the formation of the band and their mutual love of heavy metal. We also talked about filing your taxes, body modification, surviving the pandemic, the music that inspired them to be musicians, operatic metal singers like Rob Halford and Bruce Dickinson, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Lemmy from Motorhead, and so much more. I've known Troy McLawhorn for years, but this was my first time sitting down with Terry. I cannot wait to hear this new original music they're working on, and an announcement about it is coming very soon. So allow me to reintroduce you to Troy McLawhorn and introduce you to Terry LeRoi from KILLINGTON PIT. What's up, gentlemen?
What's going on, Mistress Carrie?
How are you?
Great.
Doing good. Doing taxes and shit.
Yeah, me too, as a matter of fact. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
I found out that because my logo looks like that my hairdresser is considered a business expense now.
That's awesome. What's up. Everything's a business expense.
Love it. I would assume when you're a musician, like you're writing off like the craziest of things. Like obviously all the gear and stuff, but all the time you guys spend on the road, like
seriously, like everything's a write-off. Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't write off things like meals and stuff like that because we get PDs on the road, so can't really write that off, but I can write off Ubers. And the coolest thing is buying vinyl because it's music research.
Exactly. R&D.
And once you get a video show like I have, then all of the concert shirts that you buy at the shows that you wear on TV.
Boom. Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah. And it's not even a stretch to do it. I mean, it's legit.
No, it's legit. If the billionaires can do it, the rest of us can do it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, please.
So, Terry, I don't know you, so thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. It's a pleasure, yes.
Troy and I go back to when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Troy was telling me today.
It's like, what, three bands ago?
Let's see. I mean, I've been in so many, I don't know. It's Double Drive.
Yep.
But we were called MK Ultra when I met you.
Yep.
And we did Dark New Day, and then Seether for a couple of years, Evanescence, and now Killington Pit.
Seriously.
Quite a lineage.
It's been a very long time. It's like an archaeological dig to find the fossils between the two of us at this point. It's insane.
Yeah.
I know the old facial hair is getting gray.
Yeah, I was going to say, like the fact that you've got the beard, like you're fully committed with the beard now.
Yeah.
But now it's coming in gray. I'm like, oh, the Santa and the garden gnome jokes might start coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm off right now. You know, I go between coloring it and not coloring it. Because it's such a, it's kind of a hassle. I hate doing it.
Please tell me what a pain in
just,
the ass it is dyeing your hair, Troy. Tell me what that's like.
Yeah, well, your hair looks.
Yeah. So I don't deal with that. I just do that.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Just shave it to the skull. Why not?
Why not?
You have to have a good head for that. I fear that I've got some bumps and really big ears. I think I would look foolish.
Well, you could always risk it and then wear hats for a while.
No, I don't even think anybody would recognize me without the purple at this point. It's been so long.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
great.
purple looks good on
you don't want to do that, but it is nice. I had super long hair and I shaved it like years ago, and I mean, I was like, my hair was so long, I was sitting on it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead, and I've done this over the years a few times, but now this is it. This is the look.
You're committed. It's done.
I am.
Now you can get the skull tattoos. Now, is that the next thing?
Maybe. I mean, I am in that industry. That's. I am surrounded by body modification with the type of job that I have. So literally at any time, I have access to, thousands of awesome tattoo artists that would help me out with that if I needed it.
Well, I wanted to talk about that because obviously Troy and I have known each other forever. Going back to like my old radio station and 5 bands ago for him. But you have been a musician a long time, but you also come from like the jewelry body modification world. So I'm trying to figure out how you two ended up in Killington Pit.
Well, I was watching one of your podcasts. Well, it was a video of you talking on a panel about what happened during the pandemic and how you had to reinvent yourself. Well, that's how we met. It was pandemic related. So we were all on lockdown. We all had our own separate bands doing our thing. And everyone's going, what the hell are we doing? What's going on with the world? And so we have a mutual friend, producer David Bendeth. And we just started talking. He was like, I said, hey, David, we'd love to do a Dio song. We were actually planning that year before it got closed down to play a Ride for Ronnie event. Wendy Dio come to see my band, Granny Four Barrel at the Whiskey. And it was a super cool night, and she invited us to do that show. So I still had Ronnie Dio on the brain, and I was like, oh, this thing isn't going to work out, but I wanted to record a song. So I asked David Bendeth, hey, what do you think? He's like, yeah, let's do it. I know some guys. And the next thing you know, we're starting to connect the dots with guys that I would, at some point I would have hoped to have met, but not in this way. So that's how it started.
It is funny when you think back of all the plans we all had before COVID.
Right? Yeah, it's true.
And the fact that you saw the video of me on that nerdy radio panel, you were cyber stalking.
I was. Well, I've known about you for years, but I'm just like, I gotta, now that it was an honor when Chip said, hey, we got an interview with Mistress Carrie. I was like, that's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Super stoked. But I listened to, the whole piece when you were explaining what happened. And that happened to a lot of us. But it's interesting how that connected us. And we have this, 4 years later, now we actually have this band, and it would have probably never, ever happened without that.
Yeah, it's very strange. When I launched the podcast, I started calling my friends to try and get on it before I had gotten back on the radio or anything. And some of the first people that said yes were actually Will and Troy and Amy, that were like, hell yeah, we're coming on the show. So
that's awesome.
So I appreciate the love, Troy, that your OG Mistress Carrie podcast.
Yeah, well, I owe you. I mean, we've known each other a long time. You helped my band out, actually, Double Drive, a lot back in the day. And just knowing you for so long, I'd come on your show anytime.
Oh, well, thank you. I was talking to, oh man, was it Miles Kennedy? I think I had him on the show because we were talking about me running the Boston Marathon. Like, it'll be 5 years this year that I ran it. And like the music nerd I am, I went and put a whole playlist together so that I had music for the whole thing, because it took me forever and a day. I'm not John Connolly from Seven Dust that can run it in like 48 minutes.
Right.
And so I put this whole playlist together, and there was a bunch of Alter Bridge stuff on there, but I threw some of those old Double Drive songs on that playlist.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Which one?
I put Imprint on there, obviously, just because it fit. But I think like there had to have been like 4 or 5 songs off of that first record on there, because like when I think about that era of time, you talk about, the guys in Seven Dust, the late 90s, that beginning of my radio career and that time in music is so connected in my brain with all of these memories, and you guys were such a huge part of that for me.
Yeah, well, that's how we met, right? At the farm up there.
Longview Farm Studios.
Seven Dust was recording. Clint asked me to come play on a track called Bender with Chino from Deftones singing, and I came up there and we met, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I know that you guys have done reunion shows since, and I always find out about them after they happened. So I'm telling you now, so it's recorded, the next time you guys are going to do a Double Drive reunion show, will you call the bitchy purple-haired girl in Boston so I can get on a plane, please? Because I would love to see you guys play again.
We've only really done one reunion. I got up to jam with a band years ago for this benefit show, and all of us happened to be there, and we played an impromptu jam, but it wasn't like a reunion show. We just got up and played a song. But we've only really done 2 shows. We did one here in Atlanta a couple of years ago, and it sold out like in minutes, and the guy was like, hey, you want to do one the next weekend? And so we did, and that we all had a chance to call our family and friends and say, hey, we're gonna do another one. If you want a ticket, be ready. And so
you called your family and some of your friends.
Yeah,
but next time he's not going to forget.
That's absolutely right. I got your back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that you guys are obviously all busy with your other projects. And when I interview bands and talk about the music that inspired them to become musicians in the first place, the soundtrack to their childhood, these songs that are just part of your DNA, it seems like it's that kind of passion for the music you love that made you guys want to put Killington Pit together in the first place. Like a bunch of people that love all the same music, let's get together and play the songs we love. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. I mean, we did the first Dio song, and initially I was just asked to track some rhythm guitar on it. They had another guy that was going to do the solo, and so I did the rhythm guitars, and I was like, screw it. I'm putting a solo on here because I just can't not do this. And I was like, I'm sending it, if they like it, whatever. And
we loved it.
And then, came back and they were like, yeah, we're going to use it because it's cool. And we were all really pumped up. It was just so much fun to go and learn one of these songs that I grew up on. You know, one of the songs that made me want to play guitar. You know, sitting with a cassette when I was a kid trying to figure that song out was impossible. But years later, I've been playing a long time, and you know, I've learned a lot more, and it was a lot of fun to be able to figure it out and do it with a band. And you know, some people gave me grief because I stick close to the guitar parts the way they are on the original, but I think it's an homage to it. You know, I love it when Zakk Wylde plays an Ozzy song and he does the Bark at the Moon solo exactly like Jakey Lee. It's fucking awesome. And I know that feeling, so that's why I do that. But
you're talking about Kill the King, right?
No,
which
we
Stand Up
did.
and Shout.
We
Yeah,
did
because
Stand
that
Up
was-
and
that-
Shout.
that was under the name LeRoi 13 because it was a one-off. It was like, oh, we're just going to do this one song, and then we're all going to go back to doing our other bands, and that'll be that. But then the pandemic kept going, and we were like, oh, hey, want to do another song? Yeah. What do you want to? Oh, let's do an Accept song. Hey, want to do another song? Yeah. A couple months later, let's do some Black Sabbath. Oh, let's do some Rainbow. And it just kept going like that. And it's like, well, this is actually turning into a band. Let's give it a name. And then we should write our own songs. So here we are.
Yeah. We've got a catalog of a few covers that still haven't come out.
Yeah.
So when you put a band together, because, well, Troy's known me long enough to know the musical ability that I have is none. My clarinet from the high school marching band is back there. That's as far as I ever got. So
That's
I never got to name a band, right? It seems like something that you get a bunch of friends together, you start playing songs, the natural progression is, hey, we're a band now. I would think that responsibility is as heavy as naming a kid.
It can be a nightmare. I mean, it can be.
Heavy.
It wasn't a nightmare for this project, but I have been through it where we had a zillion names and never could agree. But Terry came up with Killington Pit.
Where did it come from?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, you're exactly right. It's like you don't want to give your kid the wrong name. It's got to be cool. It's got to be metal. It's got to have some meaning. I mean, this is, hours and hours and hours just trying to research, writing things down on paper. What sounds good? What looks good? What can you do with it? Where can you go with it? And eventually, so because I'm a metalsmith, I'm a jeweler. That's by trade. I make things out of metal. And I love kind of like the Industrial Revolution era of when steel and I-beams were being forged and buildings were being built. And I started doing a little bit of research into old coal mines. And in the UK, and you can look this up on Google, there were literally hundreds at the turn of the century of these coal mines. So they extract the coal from the ground, they take the coal to the foundry, the coal is used to fuel the fire to forge the metal. One of those towns was called Killingsworth. That was the place that forged one of the first locomotives. I didn't really like Killingsworth, but as I researched, I found other towns that had cool names, like Killington, for example. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And the place where they mine it is called a pit. And I'm like, well, pit, a mosh pit in Killington. And wow, there's some work. We're forging metal. There we go.
I'm so happy that now that I've met you, I'm going to tell everybody that we're friends now. And I'm going to make you make me jewelry now. I don't have any other friends that are jewelers.
I will make you jewelry.
Yes.
I will be happy to do that.
Yes.
I've been doing that. I've been doing it for a while, a long time, years and years.
How do you even get into that? It's so much easier, I think, for me to imagine wanting to get in a band because you know, every guy that I know that I talk, they were growing up and they wanted the girls to pay attention to them and they thought being in a band was going to be a good idea. A jeweler is not the path that I ever heard somebody take before, but that's a good one.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, the story goes like this. So I'm a musician first and foremost, and I've always been a musician, but I'm from an artsy family. My mom is a sculptor, a painter, all around crafty. She's a tailor. She literally can do pretty much anything with her hands. So I kind of grew up in that household, and I was always attracted to kind of metalsmithing, earth science, gemstones, minerals, and things like that. And that was always just kind of in the background. I dabbled in it. But then high school, I was a musician, and first show we ever did, the variety show, I was like in front of my peers. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life. So there I was. That was my path. And it wasn't until like 10 years after high school that I had an opportunity to work at a jewelry store. And as a side hustle, I was also doing little farmers markets around. While I was playing, I'd play gigs on the weekends throughout the week. I would do Thursday nights at farmer markets, a side hustle making jewelry. So it was always just kind of like, I'm making jewelry to make ends meet while I'm a starving musician. But then the jewelry path led me to, well, the conversations with a particular band I had at the time called Bleed Christine. It was a band from the mid-90s. Pretty cool. It was kind of like a Pantera meets Helmet kind of a band. And there was a guy who had a fanzine, and we did an interview, and he asked me what I did for a living. And so he was heavily modified at the time. This is when body piercing first started to emerge into the public awareness. What's that?
So taboo still.
Yes, I know. And, you know, and even 20 years prior to that, you know, in San Francisco and the big cities, it was kind of subculture. But it started to emerge, and he's like, oh, you're a jeweler. And, you know, I was wondering, could you make me, you know, an eyebrow ring? Could you make me a navel ring? And so we kind of, again, another side hustle started. Oh, hey, yeah, I could do that. Maybe if I could make a couple $100 a month doing this, and I know tattoo artists and I knew local shops, so I started peddling my wares. Fast forward 30 years, here we are, and we have this company, and we make body jewelry and sell it all over the world. But I was always a musician first, and I have, you know, being a musician, I'm thankful for, because it gave me this side hustle that actually turned into a legitimate profession that I'm in and out of, although I own the company and I run it when I'm here, whenever I'm on the road. I mean, doesn't really matter what town I'm in. I know tattoo shops and body mod folks, and that's my world. Those are my people.
Growing up, there's music people and non-music people, right? There's those of us that can remember exactly what we were listening to at what era. You know, I know what album I bought, which one I got for Christmas. It always amazes me that there are those non-music people that music doesn't drive every decision they make. And then there's those of us that literally hear something, or then they're like, you're just like, whether you're a musician like you guys or not like me, that you're just like, okay, music's my thing forever. Like this is who I am and what I do.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, that's me. Like, to the very end, to the bitter end. Everything else goes away. I'm still a musician. It never stops.
I have developed a theory about music, Troy, since you came on the show first after we launched the podcast. I call it the soundtrack to your childhood. So there's the music that you had thrust upon you when you were a kid, an unwilling participant by the older brothers, mom and dad, the neighbor, whoever. And then you hear something and you decide that's what I like. And from that day on, everything is different. So for both of you guys, what's the soundtrack to your childhood? What were you listening to as a kid that kind of introduced you to music? And then what's that line in the sand that you heard, a song, a band, an album, and went, oh, hold on a second, I like that?
Troy, Hit it.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, my mom was a big influence on me and my dad, actually. They were both loved music. My dad played acoustic guitar. My mom played around with it a little bit. And they listened to stuff like, my mom was a huge Elvis fan and Beatles, Rolling Stones, you know, all that stuff that was 50s and 60s. My dad was the country guy. He liked Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and all those guys. And they both, I grew up on kind of like doo-wop music too, because that was music from their childhood. So that was my introduction to music. And, you know, as I started to get older, you know, I was hearing, my dad liked Black Sabbath too. And he was my introduction into metal. My favorite song, they tell me, I don't remember this, but my favorite song was Iron Man. And I would ask him to play it in the car all the time. He had like a 8-track or something in there. And,
8-tracks don't get enough credit for making music portable. Everybody tools on the 8-track, but it's the first time you got to decide what you listen to in the car. That's big.
True. Yeah, it was kind of shitty, but it was, at the time, there was nothing better. So we didn't know it was shitty. Like it would change to the other side in the middle of a song, you know, and fade out and fade back in. Sucked. But and you could pick, you know, certain places on the 8-track. There were like, you know, 4 on each side, and you could pick 1, 2, 3, or 4, and it would kind of drop you somewhere in the middle of a song. But and then Kiss was the first band that came out that I asked my mom, you know, I was like, I want this for my birthday, and she brought me this little green portable record player and Destroyer, I think it was my intro into Kiss. But I had been watching them before that. I saw the night that they released Kiss Meets the Phantom, you know, on Halloween. We watched it on TV. And I really wanted to be a drummer. And I thought, all the guys in Kiss were cool, but I thought Ace and Gene looked the coolest, but I still wanted to be a drummer at the time. But when I really was affected by music and decided I definitely wanted to play guitar, was hearing Van Halen 1 the very first time. I got it from a record club. I got one of those things in the mail where you put a penny in and you can pick 10 albums and they send them to you.
I forgot about those.
And I've still got it. I've got the original vinyl that I got for 1 penny, and I put it on my record player and it blew me away. And Van Halen was like, they're my favorite rock band. You know, they're not metal. I don't consider them metal. In a way, I guess they are, but they're more of a, you know, they're like a party band. You know, just a good rock band, but they're my favorite. And that's what really changed my course.
You talk about an archaeological dig of rock and roll, right? There are certain bands that when you talk to musicians, everything changed after those bands. Everything changed after the Beatles. It's impossible to measure the impact of a band like Kiss and how many generations of rock bands that they've inspired. And it would be impossible to have a conversation about the guitar and not talk about life before Eddie Van Halen and life after Eddie Van Halen.
Absolutely. He changed everything. He was like, you know, it was like how Nirvana affected music in the early 90s. You know, Eddie Van Halen changed the way people thought about guitar. Yeah. And he wasn't a jazz guy. I mean, there were tons of jazz guys that were shredders, but he was in that rock and roll, hard rock area where nobody had ever shredded like that.
I had a conversation with Nancy Wilson, which for me is like a woman in the rock world. To have a conversation with Nancy Wilson, she pops up on my computer screen and I about fell off the chair, right? And she had a great relationship with Eddie Van Halen. Matter of fact, I think she gave him his first acoustic guitar ever.
Wow.
Just told me the
That's
story.
cool.
It's crazy. But one of the things, and Troy, you'll have to back me up on this because you know, we all know I'm not a guitar player. But one of the things that she talked to me about when it came to Eddie Van Halen's influence was that was it minor keys that he played in, which was not typical, or major keys, that he changed the way rock sounded because of the key that he used, that it was different than everything that anybody had really done before. Am I off on that? Am I quoting her wrong?
I mean, I wish I knew enough about music and like theory.
Says the guy that's in 38 bands.
I don't know anything. I know how to play
all of the guitars on the wall behind you.
That's awesome.
There he is.
Yeah, there he is.
It's my rock god poster, Eddie Van Halen shredding it. Yeah, I don't know. He did use a lot of these weird chords that when I was a kid, all I knew was the power chord, which is a root note and a fifth. That's what, you know, kind of everybody starts with if you're playing rock and roll. And he was using like triads, these crazy like 3-note chords up high on the neck. I couldn't figure the shit out when I was a kid. You know, it took a while. I had to learn AC/DC first and Kiss and work my way up to figuring out, oh, okay, this is how he does that. And I mean, I was just starting to play guitar when that came out. So I was learning from all these, you know, artists, and Eddie was the one that was, I couldn't figure it out. I could never play like Eddie.
Did you ever get a chance to meet him before he died?
I did. We were in California, and we had a tour manager named Marty Hom. And while we were starting a tour, we're a couple of weeks in, and he came to us and he said, hey, I got to talk to you guys. You know, we need to have a meeting. And he's like, Van Halen just offered me a tour manager job. He's like, this is like a bucket list thing. I have to take it. And we were like, fuck yeah, you have to take it. Go do it. You know? And so we've kept in touch over the years, you know, and maybe a couple of years later, we were doing the Synthesis tour with Evanescence. We were out in California, and Marty emailed me and Will, and he was like, hey, I hear you guys are playing in town. Eddie and his girlfriend and a couple of friends want to come to the show. And we were like, whatever we have to do, we'll make it happen. Just tell us how many, you know?
Eddie, as in Eddie Van Halen. Like, it always cracks me up when people just say Eddie.
Yeah.
Because it's like, no, it's Eddie Van Halen. Like, that's the name. It's Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah. You have to say it. Yeah. But see, I've met him, so I can say Eddie. What's up, Ed?
I met him too, and I don't call him Eddie. Nuno Betancourt calls him Edward.
Yeah.
Like, won't even call him Eddie.
Mr. Van Halen.
Serious, legit, yeah. All right, so keep going. Tell me the rest of the story.
So we got him tickets, and he came out to the show, and I was waiting all day for him to get there, because Marty was like, hey, when he gets there, he wants to come back and say hi and thanks for the tickets or whatever. So I'm just sitting in the dressing room pacing, waiting for Eddie Van Halen to get there, like all day. When's he getting here? And so our tour manager texts me, hey, Eddie's here. He's coming to Amy's dressing room. So I go to her dressing room, and I just start sweating. I'm freaking out. I was dying, and I was trying to pull it together. I was like, Amy, this is the biggest thing. This is like if my mom met Elvis, you know, I'm dying. I don't know how to control myself. And so we were cracking up, and he comes in, And I'm like wiping off with a towel before he gets there because I'm literally sweating my ass off because my heart's racing. And he comes in and he was so cool. It all just went away, all the nervousness and everything. And we talked for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. He talked about Wolfgang's band and what he was doing. And I told him I knew Clint because Clint and Wolfgang know each other pretty well. And Eddie knows Clint from Seven Dust, Clint Lowry. And, you know, we talked about Seven Dust and Clint had written a couple of songs with Wolfgang. And I mean, he was just super cool guy. And I even got the balls to ask him, hey, can I take a selfie? And he's like, oh, absolutely. And I took one and he's like, take a couple more because that one looks like shit. And so we took like 7 selfies with me and him and with Amy. And he was just so cool and nicest guy. I'm so glad that I got to meet him. And this was just before he passed away.
When I got to meet him years ago, it was because the Shinedown guys were opening up for Van Halen, and it was after Simple Man and all of that stuff had happened, and Brent was like, I want to take you back and introduce you to Eddie, because he had asked me if I had ever met him, and I had been in the room with him, right? And I walked into the dressing room, and it was just Eddie and Wolfgang was a kid at the time. And the only thing, and I didn't get the selfie because I didn't have like the camera on me at the time, but I just remember his hands because he was like warming up backstage with a guitar. And I remember his hands and thinking his hands look too big to be that fast. That's what was in my head while I was in the room having a conversation, because like the tips of his fingers were like those frogs that stick to the glass.
Swollen on their ends.
Like they were just, I just remember looking at his hands and watching how fast they were. And I'm like,
yeah,
they shouldn't move that fast. They're too big to move that fast.
Yeah, he had, I mean, you know, he had a natural talent that is, you know, he was unlike anyone else. No one has ever come close to being, you know, what he was, which is good. You know, we've got other people that have a totally different, you know, like Eddie, Steve Vai and Yngwie and those guys. They've got their own language that they speak on the guitar. But Eddie's was he was such a good songwriter too. Like those Van Halen songs, they're great fucking songs, you know. There's some guys that are like these amazing guitar players, but you listen to their songs, it's okay. But when they do a solo, it's cool, you know? But yeah Eddie he had it all.
The day that he passed away, the day that the news broke that he passed away, I had just finished an interview with Kevin Martin from Candlebox, who I've known since the first record. Like I was an intern, not getting paid when I met Kevin years ago, and we were talking and we said goodbye, and then the headline broke that Eddie had passed away. And I called Kevin right back because I was like, how am I going to release this interview and it doesn't reference the passing of Eddie Van Halen? So I asked him, do you have any Eddie Van Halen stories? And he told me this great story that he had been asked at the last minute to play in a foursome of golf. And the guy that asked him to play rattled off the guys that were playing, and he just said Eddie. And so Kevin shows up like on a Sunday morning to play golf with these guys, and the Eddie was Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah. Wow.
And he showed up in a convertible Ferrari with his golf clubs in the passenger seat.
That's awesome.
And like a 12-pack of beer, and just got out of the car, threw it in the golf cart with the beer, and Kevin Martin was in the golf cart with him. And he just told me this story about how he just played a round of golf on a Sunday morning in a foursome with Eddie Van Halen completely unexpectedly. Going back to the whole thing that when you're going to talk about him, you say Eddie Van Halen, because he was like, you just said Eddie. You didn't tell me it was Eddie Van Halen showing up to play golf. You're not allowed to just say Eddie when you're referencing the GOAT.
But it's probably better that he didn't know.
Yeah.
Because he had no idea. He probably, I probably would have said, I can't do it.
But
I doubt it.
Were you thinking that he was in the audience when you were playing on stage with Evanescence that night? Was that in your head?
Yes. And I was thinking, damn it. He came to, I don't know if you know what the Synthesis tour was, but it was like, we were with an orchestra. It wasn't a rock show at all. There was the guitar stuff I was doing. I was playing it through this unit called a Axifex, made by Fractal Audio, and everything I was doing sounded like a keyboard. So the whole show, I was like, the one show Eddie comes to, and I'm not even playing guitar.
You're not even playing guitar.
I'm playing keytar.
That's funny.
Well, he's a keyboardist too, so it was okay.
Yeah, true.
It was okay. All right, so if Eddie Van Halen is Troy's Everest, what about you, Terry?
Well, right off the rip. See, I can't, it's hard to place them in order, so I'm just starting. But I'm a huge Halford, Dio, Dickinson. It's kind of like the old school pure singers, classic rock guys. But, I like good singers. I'm always interested to hear what somebody's trying to do with their voice, a new way of doing something, a new way of singing. And, but yeah, kind of the backstory, what I grew up with was, so we had a jukebox. So we had this friend, he was this old clock. He was a clock dealer. He was an antique guy and he had clocks. His name was Joe Lewis, and he had hundreds of clocks in his house. And he always had these crazy, he would repair them. And my mom would, and my stepdad, they would paint the little numbers on the old dials that were faded. So that's kind of the relationship they had. But one day he had a jukebox there. And he's like, hey, you guys want this jukebox? $50. And so we bought the jukebox and had that in our house. And that had all kinds of like oldies on it. So I had all that stuff. Listening to Herman's Hermits and Bill Haley and the Comets. And there was Beach Boys on there. And I think there was some 70s tracks on there. Boots Were Made for Walking, Nancy Sinatra, things like that. So that's kind of like what was in my purview. It was just like what I heard. But when I was 12, 13-ish, I started listening to rock radio with my friends, bands like Aerosmith. And it was just like, wow, Sonic Candy, all these, just everything was a new, exotic, cool sound. But it wasn't until, and I'm a huge Van Halen 1 fan, Troy, huge, because that blew me away. And of course, I was a super huge fan of David Lee Roth's crazy primal screams, wherever, like how many people even do that? The guy from Steel Panthers, he's got, a little bit of that he can do. But I always loved that band so much. But AC/DC was a huge turning point for me. And I was a big Bon Scott fan. And then I was around when that whole thing transitioned. And then he wasn't there anymore. And then they got the new guy. And it's like, who's this guy? Oh, he was a singer for this band called Geordie back in the day. And so I dove into Geordie. But I think as far as, and I'm certainly not stylistically like Brian Johnson, but I love the super gritty singers. But that's the thing I love about Halford the most, is he's got like, I don't know how many tones, at least 5. Axl Rose is another one. Crazy tones. We can do clean, we can do grit, we can do high, we can do low. Like they've got the whole package. And so when I heard those types of bands, that's what changed it for me. But I think Halford and Dio were the two, and Dickinson, because it was at the same time. Those bands were, I was like singing them all. Whenever a song would come on, I would sing along to it. And then my teenage friends were like, oh, dude, you could sing pretty good. You should be a singer. And I'm like, I want to be a singer. And that's kind of how that all started. But yeah, any one of those guys, it's hard for me to, I'm from Dio country because I live in upstate New York. So I'm just about an hour from Cortland. And I grew up with bands like the Good Rats and Elf was around here, and of course Ronnie Dio and Black Sabbath and all the bands that he was in, Rainbow, over the years. But yeah, it's kind of a combo. Dio, Halford, Dickinson, those are my three go-to guys.
Yeah, those were bands that inspired me to play guitar too, because I really got into the 2 guitar player Attack.
Yeah.
That Accept had, and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Queensryche. I loved all that shit when I was a kid. And that, because I couldn't learn the Eddie Van Halen stuff, I started to go more in that direction. I was like, well, I can figure this out, and I started figuring out harmony. They would do the solos where they're both playing in harmony. Loved it. That changed a lot for me too when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That Operation Mindcrime album, like Queensryche, to me, like Mindcrime, that whole album is like, you talk about like soundtrack to a portion of your life.
For sure.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many cassettes of that album I burned through in high school because I just listened to it so much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had that on vinyl. I would guess they made that on vinyl, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I never had it on vinyl. I had it on cassette too. And CD.
Yeah, because how are you supposed to drive around in the Trans Am with the girls if you don't have Operation Mindcrime on cassette?
That's right, buddy.
What cracks me up about the singers that we're talking about, right? These operatic level singers, Dio and Jeff Tate and Bruce Dickinson and Rob Halford. Terry, you can hit these notes. I'm a woman. And my voice doesn't do that. And you don't have a high voice when you're talking.
Yeah.
But when you listen to you sing, your voice goes from here to here like a rocket ship. Like, I don't understand. Mine doesn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, well, what's interesting too, you're talking about the low voice. This is the thing that really puzzles me too. So listen to Brian Johnson talk. He's like, this is Brian Johnson from AC/DC. He's got this low baritone voice, but he's singing at least 2 whole notes higher all the time than some of the high notes that Halford or any of these other guys, when they're at their top range. Johnson is like 1 or 2 whole notes above that. Back in Black. What do you do for money, honey? Like, for those about to rock, on and on. Listen to it. And because it's gravelly, it's deceptive because you don't think it's that high. And then when you try to sing along to it, you're like, holy shit, this is high. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I like the high notes. It's fun.
It's also really hard to sing gravelly and not screw up your voice.
It is.
The fact that he's been doing that for decade upon decade upon decade, and his voice isn't what went, his ears went first.
Yes. Yep. Well, and Halford's another one. I mean, this new record, his voice sounds incredible.
Unbelievable.
And he's 70 something. I don't even know. Like, dude, it's so, I'm like, but I think too that the vocal is like a direct correlation. The singer's sound is a direct correlation to their overall health too. If you're not well, I mean, since your instrument is your body, you're probably not going to sound well. But you take care of your instrument, and it's going to serve you right. I've been singing a long time, and I've learned the hard way. I've had some issues, but I'm always learning. And there's a lot of great singers out. A lot of these young guys doing some of these crazy guttural primal scream stuff. I love, they've discovered ways, and there's a lot of information out there. You can really preserve your voice and be able to do, you can do show after show if you take care of it with minimal rest.
I talked to a lot of singers about that because back when we were growing up, I don't think singers spent as much time worrying about their diet and rest and being hydrated and resting their voice. I sincerely doubt back in the late 70s that Steven Tyler was worried about his vocal cords, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there weren't as many places to learn things, I mean, YouTube is huge for me. I love YouTube.
Love it.
And I think about if I was a kid now learning guitar, I'd be way better at this point in my life,
Well, you can take guitar lessons from your favorite guitar player on YouTube now.
You can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
How much better would you be if you could take Eddie Van Halen guitar lessons on YouTube when you were a teenage kid trying to figure those songs out?
Oh my God. I would have died. That would have been awesome.
I'm even trying to figure it out. I don't sing, but the amount of talking that I do.
Yes.
That I've had, look, I could break my leg, break my arm, I could still work. But if I lose my voice, laryngitis, I have to call in sick to work. And I have not gotten to the point where I'm good at protecting it yet. Because it's just the habit of like going to shows, singing along, screaming, smoky clubs or whatever.
Yeah, you know what'll help you? If you put earplugs in, you're going to talk lower. You're going to hear yourself in your head and you're going to talk lower, especially when you're out in crowds. Because I could literally blow my voice out in 15 or 20 minutes in a loud bar. You realize instantly, wow, I'm really putting a ton of pressure on. But when I put earplugs in, I just continue to hear my voice at the level that I want to. And if somebody needs to lean into me, that's fine, but I'm going to protect my voice. But it makes a huge difference. It really does.
That's a good tip. I'm going to try that.
Do it. It'll save your voice. It really will.
When you guys started working on the track list for this record and you're picking out these iconic songs, and we were talking about it earlier, Accept and Rainbow, and is there songs that got brought up by some of the guys in the band? And like, and Terry, you were like, I can't sing that. Or did you want to play something that like the rest of the guys were like, hell no, we're not doing that?
Not really, because interestingly enough, the songs that were the bands that were chosen we all seem to have similar interests. We grew up with the same kind of music. So I initially was, and I forgot to mention Udo. He's another huge influence. I personally wanted to do London Leather Boys, but then Will said, bro, we should just do Balls to the Wall, man. It's a bigger hit. And I didn't know that Troy was a huge Accept fan either. So that was an easy turn.
Yeah, and I wanted to do Princess of the Dawn.
Yeah, that's a good one. But there wasn't any song, fortunately, that was like, I can't really do that I wouldn't really do a Whitesnake song justice because it's just a type of singing. I would do it in my own way, and I could certainly, manage the range, but there's certain things I probably wouldn't do great on a Guns N' Roses song, but I could, I could pull it off range-wise. But there's certain things that fit in my wheelhouse better, the songs that we've chosen. But everybody has had a say in what we've chosen, and I love that because it's just, that's collaborative. That's the way it should be.
We're talking about Rob Halford, and Judas Priest obviously just got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I think really kind of understood the moment that for some reason heavy metal has had such a hard time getting recognized in the Rock Hall. And so for Judas Priest to get in there, and Rob Halford even said, like, hopefully more metal bands are going to follow behind us now. And then you see Rob Halford singing Jolene with Dolly Parton. And it's like,
love it.
My brain like exploded when I saw that.
Yeah.
But the fact that like Dio's not in the Rock Hall or Iron Maiden's not in the Rock Hall, what is that?
That's tragic.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? I mean, is the Rock Hall just doing a disservice? Do they even matter? And why do you think it is?
I don't know. I think there's, I don't pay too much attention to that. It's great for the artists, I think. that get into it. It's a huge honor. I still feel like it is. Some people like Eddie Trunk just are fed up with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Sometimes bands go in there that I'm like, that's not a rock band. You know, I don't get it. But I don't know. Maybe there's just too many bands, you know. There are a lot of huge bands, you know, and I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, really. It's hard, you know, hard from my viewpoint. I don't know that much about it. It would certainly be cool to be in there, but you know, it doesn't change my opinion on a band whether they make it in there or not.
I just read this survey that they did on rock and metal bands and merch sales, and more than Slipknot, more than Pantera, Maiden, more than anybody. Not a surprise to anybody that's a Maiden fan that they sell more merch than anybody. You just got to go to one Maiden show to know the answer to that question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're the band that made it cool to wear their own shirt to their own shows.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, the merch is huge.
And continuing to sell out arenas.
I just met Bruce Dickinson in the airport not too long ago.
And that's awesome.
He was super nice too.
You bumped into him at the airport?
I did. I was in security line with him, and I didn't recognize him at first because he was in like a safari kind of outfit, like green shorts and a green button-up shirt with a green baseball cap on. And his hair was in a ponytail. And I didn't recognize him at first. And then I got through security and he was talking to my guitar tech. They knew each other somehow. And then he introduced me, and then we got into a conversation about my son, because my son wants to be a pilot. And of course, and I was like, blam, that light bulb went off in my head. I was like, ooh, I can talk about this with Bruce. And we talked for 10 or 15 minutes while we walked through the airport. It was awesome.
It's not Bruce, it's Bruce Dickinson, Troy.
Mr. Dickinson.
Just so we're clear.
Back in the old AF studio, the security guard called me from downstairs once to tell me that there was a guy, quote unquote, there's a guy named Bruce Dickinson down here to see you. Can I let him up?
That's awesome.
And I'm like,
he's like, I don't know who he is.
Yeah, let him up. And he comes upstairs, Bruce Dickinson, wearing the visitor badge when you go into those big corporate buildings that they print out with the Dymo label maker.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it said Bruce Dickinson on his. I'm like, you took his ID? Like, it's Bruce Dickinson. We stuck it on the wall of the studio, and it was there for years and years and years. Yeah,
that's great.
The last time I went out to LA, it's kind of morbid, but I really wanted to do it. I made a list of a bunch of like the rock star grave sites that I wanted to go to. And it was shortly after Chris Cornell had passed away, so I went to his grave. But I needed to go see Ronnie James Dio. Like I had to do it. And I turned the corner and I was like, there he is.
Yep.
Like the majestic altar of metal that is visiting Ronnie James Dio.
Oh, yeah.
I've never done that. I've never been to anyone's grave, you know, and I've been in places, you know, where there was a famous grave of somebody and other people went, but I don't know. It's kind of morbid. I've never done that.
I felt like it was kind of morbid, but I wanted to go to those big, famous Hollywood cemeteries. Like I went to Mel Blanc, the old the voice guy from all the old cartoons. I went to his grave. I saw Liza Minnelli's grave, but I really, like, you know, over the years in rock, we have lost prolific musicians, you know, Vinny and Dime, you know, obviously people like Kurt Cobain and Lane Staley. Chris Cornell, because I had him on the show so many times, that one got me in a different place. So when I had the chance to go to his grave, I felt like I had to. And I really wanted to go to Ronnie James Dio's grave. And so I went. And if you ever go, do an about face, because across the courtyard, there is a mausoleum wall with people's cremated remains in it. And Lemmy and Dio look at each other for eternity at the cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
cool.
That's freaking cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lemmy's a trip. I met him a few times. He was a funny guy.
I only got to meet him once, and somebody took a picture with a film camera. Yeah. And I know I have the picture somewhere, and I haven't been able to find it yet, and it's killing me because I need to find that picture so bad.
Yeah, I met him.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I met him in, I think the first time I met him was in France. We were over there playing a festival or something, and he was in the bar at the hotel. And I met him there. I was in Evanescence. And then the next time I saw him, I was in Seether. And we were in catering, and we were talking, and I was like, I met you in Evanescence a couple of years ago. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm playing in Seether. And he's like, you should have stayed in Evanescence.
Lemmy really said that to you?
He did. He loves Evanescence. He loved Evanescence. He really did. He would come and watch us, and he was very cool.
That is a frickin' riot.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I want to talk to you guys about the record before I let you go, because nobody would tell me when it's coming out and how much original music is on there. So I need you guys to give me all of the deets on this thing, because nobody will tell me. And I don't know if it's because everybody knows I can't keep a secret or not.
Well, we'll set you straight. So originally, again, it starts out as this kind of, let's do some covers. Let's have some fun. Oh, wow, we have a lot of covers. We should put out a record. Hey, a lot of these artists that created these songs 40 years ago, there was never an accompanying video. We should do some videos too. The more time that we spent doing this, the more we became, closer, friendship developed. Now we're like, we got some original ideas here. Let's start writing music. So that's what we've been doing. So what happened was we kind of paused just released Riding on the Wind. But the next thing that you hear from us will be original music. We feel like we're just going to kind of drop a smattering of the covers in between. And at the very least, we'll do a 5-song original EP. Now, we have enough material to finish a record, but we're going to take a couple of tracks to radio within the next few months and just kind of put it out there and see what happens. I've been going to Nashville every couple of weeks and working on new music. Troy and Will and I and Chuck, we've been sharing some ideas back and forth. And so it's kind of like there is no set release for a finished record, but we do know that the next music coming is an original song with a video. And that's in the mixing stages as we speak.
We can add Killington Pit to the ever-growing list of bands that are writing, recording, and releasing music out of Nashville.
Yeah.
The rock invasion of Nashville is just unbelievable.
LA has moved to Nashville.
It's unreal.
I mean, when you go there, there's all these guys that used to live in LA, Mark Slaughter, and I think Mick Mars lives there. I mean, tons of people from the 80s live in Nashville now. And it's like that LA, just moved the whole town to Nashville. It's nuts.
And everybody that I know that lives there bitches about it, because now not only have the rock stars moved there, but so is the traffic. And so is all of the other pain in the ass things that go with a bunch of new people moving into a town.
Yeah. If you look at I just looked at the census, and it was like, I think it's somewhere around 2002, 2003, 4-ish. It was the population, I think, was somewhere in that 600,000 range. It's like 1.3 million. So 20 years, it doubled. And I remember when I was there recording a record with producer Michael Wagner for my band Titanium Black in 2004. And he was like, oh, Kip Winger just moved out here, and Paul Taylor. And actually Paul Taylor played on one of the songs that we did. And he played piano. But yeah, it was the very beginnings of everyone was talking about Nashville. We're going to move to Nashville. Sandy Gennaro from, who did he play with? Joan Jett, Sandy, the drummer from, and I started to meet a lot of these guys, and now everybody's there. Like literally everybody's there.
I had never been there, and I went a couple years ago. And I had the idea that everybody was going to have cowboy hats and belt buckles and stuff. And as I was walking around, I was like, oh, it's Music City. It's not country music city. It's Music City.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely expanded musically. I think rock and roll has always been there, but, it's country, I think for a long time ruled that town, but I don't think so anymore. I mean, tons of artists go there to record. We've recorded Evanescence, our past 2 or 3 albums there. And I did a Seether album there.
Yeah. We shot all our videos in Nashville. Killington Pit videos, yep.
They got it going on there. They got everything you need. I mean, there's tons of studios, really great studios, and recording studios and video recording studios. It's a great place to work.
And it's a fun place to party, too. There's tons of cool places to go out and see live music and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
The unfortunate bachelorette parties you bump into all the time. They're literally everywhere down there.
Constant.
I have to ask, obviously, about the other projects in your life. You know, Troy, obviously, you've been insinuating about Evanescence and that you're off right now. What's going on with the band? Because obviously you got to work the Killington Pit schedule around you and Will both around Evanescence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Evanescence is, we just finished a 2-year tour at the end of the pandemic, or close to the end. We started touring on the last album in October of 21 or November of 21. And we just finished up at the end of October of 23. So we decided we were going to take a little time off, start getting our ideas together to write more music and record a new album. So we're going to do that. And we've been trading some ideas, but we haven't gotten together as a band to go through that stuff yet. But we've got some shows coming up this year. Not a lot of shows, but, under 20 shows this year.
Well, part of the reason why I brought it up is that one of those shows is that insane Korn 30th anniversary show in October. Yeah. When I see things like that written down, Korn's 30th anniversary show.
Yeah.
It hurts my brain that it's been that long.
It makes me feel so fucking old. I saw them. I didn't even know who they were. And they played at the Villa Alrosa where Dimebag got shot. And me and Clint Lowry, because we were in a band back then together, me and him and a friend of ours went there and watched Korn. There was nobody there. And they were awesome. And we were like, holy shit, this is the new thing, But yeah, 30 years, that's insane.
Yeah, 30 years lately is like that.
There's all of these, there's all of these anniversaries this year for some reason. The list of unbelievable albums that came out in 1994, such a huge and prolific year in music. Woodstock 94, I'm getting ready to talk to Ed Rowland from Collective Soul because I was at Woodstock 94. And then speaking of Korn, at Woodstock 99. And it's the 25th anniversary of that mess.
Wow.
I was just talking to Head about it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That those guys
I missed those, the Woodstocks.
They were fun. 94 was very muddy, but very fun. 99 was something very different. If you've seen the documentaries.
Nails that was the 94 one, right?
What?
9 Inch Nails.
Oh, 94. It was right after the Downward Spiral came out.
Yeah.
And he jumped in the mud pit. Oh. Again, that album just celebrated its 30th anniversary.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, the Downward Spiral just was what?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that tour, and I saw 9 Inch Nails at Madison Square Garden on that tour. With Clint.
It was probably right after they were in Boston. That is the last show of the original Boston Garden. Was
wow.
9 Inch Nails on the Downward Spiral tour with Marilyn Manson and the Jim Rose Circus.
Yeah.
And they ripped the seats out of the floor because it was the last show ever there.
Yeah.
Just insane.
That's cool.
But the Woodstock 94 9 Inch Nails performance was as epic as you would imagine it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're one of my favorites too. If you start going from metal into the kind of industrial synth thing, I love 9 Inch Nails.
Me too.
My favorite lately is just, I can't get enough of Rammstein. It's just, everything about that band, just the sheer size and immensity of what they are, the size of the shows, the hundreds of millions of views and streams. Yeah. It's like, do you realize how big this band actually is?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So there's a lot of people in the United States that don't really understand. And you guys know from being overseas, I had a chance because I had heard about European metal fans, but had never experienced it. And a few years ago, I went to Romania and I saw the aforementioned Judas Priest in Bucharest.
Wow.
And it was a whole other thing. Those European metal fans and South American metal fans, it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a show with Manowar with my band Titanium Black in Bad Arolsen, Germany, and it was like 30,000 people there. There's actually a video of that performance on YouTube under Titanium Black. The song is called Stripped. You can look it up. 2008. Alice Cooper was on that show. Goddard, Doro, Ted Nugent. There were some cool bands.
Yeah, festivals are definitely different when you go over there. Or South America too. The fans are rabid. They love music.
There was just there was just viral footage of Lollapalooza in Argentina and Limp Bizkit playing in front of 100,000 people like a week ago.
Yeah.
And it looks like Woodstock 99 all over again. It's insane.
I know. I love that. There's some live show. I think it's a Rock in Rio 90 or 91 with Judas Priest. And I think it was Painkiller. That was the album that was out. And Halpert is like, in my opinion, I mean, he might disagree with me, but in my opinion, he was in like his superb vocal prime. And he's just going off and he's screaming these super high notes and he just wouldn't stop like the whole set. He was just going. It's like, and then the fans, I don't even know how many people were at that thing, but it's a sea of people.
Yeah, we've played Rock in Rio in Rio. They have one also that's we're about to play it this year in Lisbon, I think it is. But the one in Rio it's insane. There's so many people there. It's so, it's so many people that you're not even nervous anymore because you can't even.
It doesn't look real.
Yeah, it's like, this is insane, How are the people on the back even hearing this, Because it's so far away. It's awesome.
I had the chance way back in the day, backstage at a Judas Priest show, and they agreed to play acoustic on my show. And so you see Judas Priest at those festivals, right? With Halford just screaming. Mm-hmm. But then I saw him sing in front of like 20 people, and he did like Diamonds and Rust acoustic. Yeah. And it just like changed my bone marrow. It was so good. It was like his voice just, I don't know where that comes from, but wherever it does, he got it in spades.
Yeah, he did. Yep. Love it.
He's an amazing singer. And to see him, I mean, I go and if I'm at home, they play Atlanta often. I mean, I think they're coming this summer. I can't recall, but I just saw them. Me and my son went in 22, I think 2022 or 2021. Queensryche was opening, and a friend of mine was doing sound, and I happened to be home, so we went out, and I mean, the fact that he can still sing like that all these years later is just crazy.
Please tell me your son appreciated it.
My son is a drummer, and he loves metal.
Okay,
he loves Judas Priest. He loves Slipknot. He loves, metal in general. He's into all of it. And actually, his very first concert in utero, in the womb, was Judas Priest.
Really?
Yep. My wife was pregnant with him. I bought tickets to go, and then I ended up not being able to go because a show got booked or whatever. So her and one of her friends went, and she sent me video and pictures and stuff. But yeah, that was his first concert.
That is so
He picked up the Priest vibes. Yeah.
My husband had never seen, I was in Romania visiting him because he's in the military. And I got Judas Priest tickets, and he grew up on the countryside of things. So metal is like this new experience for him, which is really weird to see someone experience metal for the first time. And we're standing in Bucharest watching Judas Priest, and he's just looking around at these tens of thousands of people like, what the hell is going on right now? And then he comes out on the Harley, right? And then at one point in the show, he just looks at me and he goes, how many jackets does this guy have? And I go, all of them. He has all of them.
He does. That's awesome.
But if you're a metal fan, you appreciate it all.
It's about the passion. It's primal. It's passionate.
Absolutely. And you guys know from being on tour, he's got wardrobe cases. He's probably got half a truck worth of wardrobe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how he wears those long trench coats on stage. That's got to be hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think so. Well, I can't wait for the Killington Pit album to come out. Will you guys please, when you announce all the dates and stuff, give me a little inside info when you're allowed to tell me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really appreciate this was great. It was a real honor to meet you.
Well,
Thank you.
I can't wait for you guys to be able to go out on the road so you can come to the Northeast and I can actually come and see you do this stuff live.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, we're working on shows right now. So our label, M3 Recordings, it's an interesting collection of three guys named Matt. So our manager, Matt Holmes, producer, Matt Malpass, and then Matt Pinfield, who you know, Matt Pinfield. And so there's some things percolating as we get ready for radio. We're talking to agents. We got some things happening. And to Killington Pit's benefit this year, there are some nice windows of opportunity while these guys are not doing as many shows. So this is like perfect timing for all of it.
And there's also perfect timing for a Double Drive reunion that I'm going to come to Atlanta to see.
I want to see Double Drive.
When my friend Troy calls me to tell me that they're going to do another reunion show.
I won't let him forget.
Thank you. It was good to see you guys.
Great to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I always want to get the dirt first. That's people that subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast have an expectation that they're going to find out about new music and stuff before anybody else. So I needed to get the details.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're working on it. And, I think the original stuff is right in line with the covers that we've been doing. I think it's, I hope that people are going to like it. I think it's very cool.
I'm sure that they're going to love it.
Yeah, it's a merging of the foundational kind of old school classic rock stuff with modern elements that brings it into the future. So we're really digging it. And just like Rick Rubin says, you please yourself first, make yourself happy, and we're very pleased with it. So we were honest in what we did. We did things the way that we wanted to, and hopefully that translates.
There they are, Troy McLawhorn and Terry LeRoi from Killington Pit. You can check out the music they've already released in this episode's corresponding playlist. You'll find it linked in the show notes. And we had an extensive conversation about music. All of the artists and songs that we referenced are in the playlist as well. You'll also find all of Killington Pit's links, all of Troy's links, and all of Terry's links, and of course, all the Mistress Carrie links. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday, plus every weekday you get the Sit Rep. The Situation Report boils down all of your rock news, music headlines, and entertainment updates to about 5 minutes. And you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. Join me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern for my streaming video show, Cocktails in the War Room. You'll find it on my official Facebook and Instagram, Twitter and Twitch, and on my YouTube channel. And of course, you can always find me on the radio. Get the details on all that and more at MistressCarrie.com. The Mistress Carrie Podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.